first want to say thank you to Tara and the Free Minds, Free People family for asking me to be the opening speaker. I don't take things like that lightly. When someone believes that you have something to offer to an event as important as this, we must take it seriously, and I do. As stated before, I serve the Keynote Oakland Community Organization as its education organizer. But we are also proud members of the Alliance for Education Justice. Make some noise for AEJ. Grow Your Own Teachers Illinois. Make your own noise for GYO. Make some noise for GYO. Where we are actually addressing the teacher turnover and the elimination of teachers of color by producing our own teachers into our schools. Voices of Youth in Chicago Education. Make some noise for Voice. So if you all heard about the group of young people who exposed the fact that Noble Street Charter School was taxing low-income African-American families to the tune of $200,000 a year and pushing out young people at an alarming rate, that was Voice's work. If you heard that 10-day suspensions are no longer allowed in Chicago public schools, that was Voice's work. So not Voice by itself, like I said. Voice is part of a coalition of several organizations that pulled that off, all right? And last but not least, I'd like to just say that we're also part of the Emerging Alliance Journey for Justice, who I serve as the National Director. Journey for Justice is 18 cities that are committed to fighting for community-driven school improvement. The whole question of school closings is a detail, but we know that we have to control the institutions in our neighborhood, and that's one of the main problems, that we live in communities where our schools are controlled by other interests, and we have to change that. So that's what Journey for Justice is committed to. So I'd like to share a few things with you today, a little bit about the history of who we are, kind of what got me into this work, and kind of where we are. What we see as one of the main issues facing us today, which is the sabotage of public education in neighborhood schools, and then the direction that we're trying to move in. And hopefully, some of us can move in that direction together. Because I know that there are many powerful organizers in the audience. I know that there are several strong activists in the audience. One thing that often happens is we're working over here, we're on our island over here, on our island over here. But the people who are destroying our communities are coordinated. But they're not powerful. So I want you to understand the tone of what I'm going to say today. I'm a believer in the fact that, I'll say it like this, that we have to be bold and audacious in our work. We have to push possibilities to the limit. And the only limitations we have are the ones that we accept. Too often in this work, we give the fight away before the fight jumps off. We give it away. There are people in this room that I've worked with, and we have stopped school closings. We have stopped schools from closing. So, April, raise your hand, sister. Raise your hand, April. Stand up, April, please. I'll put you on blast, that's all right. Ms. Jefferson, please stand up. These are some members of Keynote Oakland Community Organization. And I just want y'all to understand the power of spirit. You know, a lot of times we conversate, we talk about it, but I'm gonna tell you what inspires me, what moves me. See, I was a volunteer at Cocoa in 1991 when I had just come out of the music industry and I wanted to do something, and there was this place that I could actually organize with the people directly impacted. I wasn't going there to try to save nobody. I wasn't going there to try to say you should do this, but I could actually help to provide a space for the people in the neighborhood who are impacted by issues to address those issues. And so when I met Sister April in 2008, they were struggling to stop Robinson Elementary School from closing. None of them were activists, none of them were organizers, none of them got a check. They did what they were just mothers, right? And when I said, well, what y'all gonna do? I said, we gotta call some parents. And we gotta organize to make sure that we see if the people really wanna fight. Because you can't fake a fight. You can't manufacture a fight. If the fight is there, it's there. If it's not, you gotta be able to fight another day. So we had a couple of days we made phone calls, and then it was a Tuesday night at 6 p.m. We walked into Mollison Gymnasium. It was 300 parents in the room, and students, buzzing, and everybody educated on why that school shouldn't close. So when we went to Chicago Public Schools, we kicked down the door, and they stopped their school from closing. And the point I'm making is, they didn't care how powerful Mayor Daley was, or they didn't care how much money they had. It was the will of the people. And that lesson taught me that we forget that sometimes. We forget that the thing that will beat money power is people power. Money power is an illusion. Money power can buy fake people power. But what fake people, does that make sense? Fake people power? But what fake people power don't have is a key element: love. See, you can't sit up and talk about you gonna carry out this, I'm an organizer, I'm an activist, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have genuine love, which means a desire for unity, a commitment to be one with, if you don't have that love for that work, for the community you're in, then you're faking the fun. And what those sisters had was love. So, this year, and then I promise I'll start reading. This year, when Chicago Public Schools closed 49 schools, right? We talked to people beforehand. We said, look, the board will vote against your schools. Don't even sit up here and expect them to vote differently. The Thursday after the board made that vote, in the park of Kennecott Park on 4434 South Lake Park, I walked into the room and there was a room full of parents. So I'm like, well, what we gonna do? And for me, that said, we gonna win this fight. We might not win the battle, but we're going to win the war. Because at the end of the day, we can take a hit and we can keep on going. But when we hit them, will they be able to take it? No, because there's no commitment. There's no investment. We just haven't hit them yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so let me start reading. All right. So, I'd like to share a little bit about who we are as a Kenwood Oakland Community Organization and how that's helped us shape the man who stands here before you today. COCO was started in 1965 by religious and community leaders who saw the need for African American working and low-income families to organize around critical issues such as restrictive covenants that denied us access to quality housing, better grocery stores, and good schools. So we are the oldest African American-led grassroots community organizing group in this city. And our base, about 750 strong, of African American families with an income of nothing to $38,000 a year are targeted for removal by the city of Chicago. So in other words, our neighborhood is the eye of the storm. Every kick out poor people, get rid of poor people policy you can imagine, in every quality of life area, we hit with every day. Who can relate to what I'm talking about? All right. Every day, our base is challenged with issues of affordable housing, lack of investment in youth, hunger, mistreatment of our seniors in senior homes, health and safety. This proud community, which was the home to Ida B. Wells, make some noise if you know the people I'm talking about. Ida B. Wells, Louis Armstrong, Harold Washington, Ramsey Lewis, Lou Rawls, Gwendolyn Brooks, Margaret Burroughs, who started the DuSable Museum for African American History in her house, right? Dr. Walter H. Dyer, who was the trainer and superstar, who trained Ramsey Lewis, who trained Eddie Harris, and other jazz greats. Will the Thrill Biden, who plays for the Detroit Pistons, who was in our after-school program as a youth at Price Elementary School. Jennifer Hudson, Eddie Harris, Muddy Waters, Minnie Riperton. Y'all know Minnie Riperton, right? Y'all don't know about Minnie Riperton. Back down memory lane. Okay, that's Minnie Riperton, all right? And Sam Cooke. Minnie Riperton grew up on 39th and Cottage Road. Sam Cooke went to Doolittle East Elementary School on 35th Street. They are the hood. And this neighborhood, this community, which is called one of the two black meccas in the United States, the great poet Margaret Walker in the poem For Our People talked about the impact of Harlem, New York, and Bronzeville in Chicago on the development of black people in the 20th century. But despite this proud legacy, despite this history, our base is targeted for removal. We have suffered through school closings, which started in Bronzeville in 1998 with the closing of schools as a result of the CHA Plan for Transformation, and accelerated in 2004 with the first leg of Renaissance 2010, has spread like a plague throughout and beyond the borders of the United States. Where's my sister Karen Royal at? You was just in New Zealand, right? Australia, and in Australia they closed the schools, right? Yeah. Absolutely. So this is not just a national issue, it is a global issue. But we recognize now that schools are being closed, turned around, and phased out in places like Ambler, Pennsylvania, and Wichita, Kansas. We have fought ferociously against this top-down corporate form of school intervention in our community, and because of that, we have a very adversarial relationship with the Chicago Public Schools and the city of Chicago. But I want y'all to understand that it's not always been that way. When Arnie Duncan first became the CEO of Chicago Public Schools in 2002, he spoke at our convention. And we were hopeful because of his history in our neighborhood. But we learned very soon that after we made every attempt to meet with them, follow their rules, jump through every hoop that they presented, that the truth is, in relation to school privatization in our communities, there is no inside-out game. There is no get in front of it. There is no just work with the system. No, there's greed, and our communities are to be consumed. These schools are to be sold, and our babies are the product. There is no limit to the greed. We know that at the end of the day, there's no violation that they won't commit. In my neighborhood, the closing of schools has coincided with the shutting down of the 21st District Police Station, and the homicide rate has jumped up over 300%. That's Chicago Police Department statistics. This same community lost Michael Reese Hospital and the Trauma Center at Providence Hospital, which was created by Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, who was the first doctor to perform open heart surgery, successful surgery on the human heart. Despite that, they snatched the Trauma Center out of Providence Hospital. I just want to share something with you all that people don't talk about. I heard about the little sister Dia Pendleton, right? Yeah. All right. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. The sister who was murdered a week after being at the president's inauguration. The Dia Pendleton got shot on 45th and Oakland Mall. Providence Hospital was on 51st, right east of King Drive. Maybe a 7 or 8 minute drive from there. Because there was no trauma center, they had to drive that sister all the way to Gary Coleman Children's Hospital. Y'all follow? On 76th Street. My only point being, and nobody's saying this, that communities should have access to those resources because we don't know whether that baby would have made it or not. One of my students, that many of you all have heard about, Kevin Ambrose, was shot after he walked from his house on 48th and Prairie to pick his friend up at the train station. Kevin was picking his friend up and wanted to walk him back so he would be safe. This guy rolled up and just decided he was going to shoot Kevin. Kevin was in our daycare since he was 4 years old. We basically helped raise this little brother. Kevin was going to a South Columbia college. This guy jumps out, chases Kevin through the vacant lot, and shoots him in the vacant lot. And my little brother lost his life. But there was no trauma center in the community that he could have gone to. They had to take him to John Stroger, to the county. And y'all know that once you go to the county, it ain't looking good. So the point being, this type of disinvestment is what we suffer in our communities. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Yeah. But this is not about education. This is about what Dr. Pauline Lipman calls the right to the city. There's a war being waged on working in low-income communities of color, and we are indeed at a tipping point. So what you are seeing now in our communities is that people have had it. People are at a place where they are prepared to do what they were not prepared to do 3-4 years ago, and that is struggle for better education. So the question is, if the spirit is there amongst the people, and they may not know how to fight, but they want to fight, it's the job of the organizers to help our people learn what? How to fight. Right? If we don't, in this time, where you get thousands of people, where you get thousands of young people in Philadelphia walking out of school, where's Philly at? Where's Philly at? You got thousands of young people in Newark, New Jersey doing walkouts. You got young people and parents in Oakland occupying the school for 13 days. You got a teacher's strike in Chicago that was inspired partly by a march on the mayor's house with 700, not everybody and their mama marching to the mayor's house, Randy. But in 2012, 700 of us marched to that man's house and let him know, you might win the battle, but you ain't gonna win the war.